Hi, I'm Jackie Thompson, and I'm a public service librarian here at Woodstock Public Library. And I'd like to welcome you to Wellbeing Series. This is our first day, and we're starting with the Canadian Mental Health Association's social worker, Christine Hillis. Christine is a social worker, therapist with an MSW and RSW. Her specialties are in grief, trauma, PTSD, and anxiety. Now, when I approached CMHA, Christine offered several topics, but one that stood out to me was on how to help others. Right now, in today's society, I think there's a high amount of anxiety, and reaching out to others and trying to help during these times is very important. So I'm going to pass it on to Christine.
Help other, like Jackie said, it's definitely a challenging time for a lot of people right now, and helping others is on the forefront of a lot of people's minds. So I'll pull up my presentation here just about how to help other people. Let me get started here. So so I'm Christine Hillis. Within Oxford County, I work for the Canadian Mental Health Association. I'm an urgent needs case manager there. What that means is I do a lot of work within the community, a lot of work with individuals who cannot wait on a wait list. They've got lots of stuff going on. So that's a lot of the work that I do here in Oxford County. I've actually been with CMHA Oxford through the Woodstock branch for about 9 years. So I spent a long time here in Woodstock. So we are going to be talking about, like I said, kind of how to help other people. A lot of us know, when we want to reach out, but just some things to kind of look out for, some things to be aware of, knowing when something might be going on for somebody and when we might want to be reaching out to see if we could help them, are a lot of different changes. So a big thing that we look at are different types of changes, things that are different from the kind of normal or what that person's normal is. So for example, some of the different changes in behavior. So you might be finding that somebody who is normally really, outgoing and goes to a lot of events might start to really be withdrawing more. You're maybe not seeing them as often. Another behavior could literally be crying a lot. Just a lot of those different types of behaviors. Sometimes it could be more like outward behaviors, where it could be kind of risky type behaviors, like increased spending, sexuality, things like that, that maybe are causing you to be concerned as well. So that might be some stuff that you are noticing. Changes in appearance. Again, this is really based on what that person's normal is typically. So, if it's somebody who oftentimes would, have their hair done, be well dressed and everything, and then every time you see them, they are looking really run down. They're not really taking care of themselves. You might be noticing changes in like hygiene. Maybe they're not showering as often. It could be like large changes in their weight, where it's, significant weight loss, weight gain, again, just really differences in the way that they normally would look when you would see them. Some of the changes in thinking or attitude you might notice as well. So they could be having more kinds of negative thoughts. We talk a lot about like self-deprecating thoughts, which basically means, really being down on yourself. So if it's, somebody who, who, is starting to talk really negatively about themselves and criticize themselves and be very kind of more pessimistic than they normally would be, that might be a change in thinking or attitude. So again, like just things to kind of be mindful of that we might notice in other people. And then, of course, changes in mood. So if you're finding that when you're talking to somebody who you know, and there's some kind of significant changes and they seem really up, they seem really down, they seem really angry, like really, again, just things that are kind of different from their norm, might be things that we are being kind of mindful for. In terms of some of the different thoughts or statements, when we are hearing suicidal or homicidal statements from somebody, this is when we really want to make sure that they get connected with some type of crisis supports. Further on in the presentation, we're going to talk more about how to help within those crisis and emergency situations. But right now, to start, we're just kind of talking more about conversationally, how do you have these difficult conversations with someone in terms of their mental health? So these might be some of the reasons why you want to approach somebody, some of what you're noticing. So first and foremost, we want to figure out how to approach the person. I know for me, I had watched a bunch of those, intervention shows. A lot of people kind of have that idea in mind when they think of, going and confronting somebody about their mental health. But we actually know within the research that that's not really the most helpful or supportive way to talk to somebody when they've got stuff going on. We want to be able to kind of have more of a supportive and less intimidating approach when we're connecting with someone. So first and foremost, we might want to find a calm or neutral location, especially somewhere that might be quiet or more private, whether it's, somebody who is close to you who you can just invite over to your house or meet at a park, or have someone somewhere that's just kind of more of this neutral location can be great. And if possible, try and have one person approaching or at least taking the lead. So, if there's any type of kind of safety issues or you're not feeling comfortable making that approach on your own, then for sure have somebody else there with you. The reason that I say this is just the more people we have approaching, the more it can start to feel confrontational, where, if you're somebody who is struggling, you're having a hard time, maybe you are already withdrawing, to have like 8 people show up and start talking to you about, the things that you're doing wrong, that can feel really confrontational. So we try and keep things smaller. So if there is more than one person around or in this space, just try and have that one person kind of taking the lead. It doesn't mean that if you're taking the lead, you're taking the whole thing on, because you can still talk about, other people being there and willing to support, and other people caring about them as well. It just is, again, that less intimidating way to approach. Some of the different statements or questions that we can start out with, because sometimes people have a hard time with what language should I use. You can even just start with what you've noticed, right? Because as we talked about in the last slide, you've probably noticed some changes within that person, which is what is making you concerned in the first place. So if you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I talk to this person? How do I approach it? It can be, I've noticed that you're withdrawing more. I've noticed that you've been thinking really negatively or speaking really negatively lately. Use the actual examples of what you've noticed, because it's true, it's genuine, it's what you're actually noticing. You're not having to kind of make something up or try and come up with things. But you're also not doing it from a blaming position. You're just talking about what you've noticed. Some other kinds of questions are literally just that "how are you doing" question, with leaving the space for somebody to respond and be open, right? So I think there's a difference between that, like, "Oh, how's it going?" as you walk by, and the polite answer to say is, "Oh, I'm okay, oh, I'm good," but actually having that space and that calm, neutral location where you can say, like, "How are you doing?" right? And have more kind of genuine care in your voice. You can ask things like, is something different, or has something changed? To see, do they have something significant going on that you just aren't aware about? Even if it is somebody that you're close to, you might not know everything that's going on in their life. So some of those questions can be helpful. And ultimately, we're asking with curiosity. So we're trying to, ask these questions not in a leading way. We're not trying to be judgmental in the way we're asking. We're just trying to figure out like what is going on for you and how do I help? In terms of how we then listen to the responses, I know sometimes listening sounds like a thing that we all just should know how to do. But there's different ways of listening, as a lot of us know based on the people that we've talked to. So first and foremost, listening non-judgmentally. So this can be actually more challenging, especially when it is somebody that we care about who's maybe making some choices that we don't agree with. They maybe have a different belief system than ours. So we have to make sure that we're still having this non-judgmental approach and allowing them to feel comfortable sharing whatever it is they need to share. We want to let the person take the lead. So we want to make sure that people feel as in control as possible within these conversations. Again, we're not leading the conversation. We're not directing. We're not, thinking, okay, well, I know that I want the conversation to end this way. So I want to make sure that we're going in this direction. Let the person tell as much or as little of their story. Let them share as much or as little as they want with you. And really, again, it's that empowering way of allowing them to have control within the conversation. We want to avoid interruptions. I mean, of course, we all hate it when we get interrupted, and sometimes we want to jump in, we want to jump in and share our story, or we want to jump in and share our advice because we're trying to be helpful. We're not doing these things to be rude or to not be helpful. This is our way of trying to help, but we really want to hold back and try and let them, again, kind of tell their story. It's an interesting thing as well within trauma, and when people talk about traumatic experiences, we have to be really careful not interrupting when we've heard the same story before. So I know sometimes we have this natural reaction of somebody's telling a story and you're like, yeah, I know you've told me about that before, because that's actually the way the brain is processing that information again and again, because people kind of get stuck in a loop. So we want to avoid jumping in and saying, yeah, I know that. Yeah, I know. I've heard that before. I know I have something similar. We really just want to allow that space to share as much as they want. We want to avoid telling them what to do or how to feel. So again, this can come from that place of wanting to help and feeling helpful by jumping in and saying, oh, well, you can go do this, or you can go to this place, or you should do this, or, you should just think more positively, or, oh, like, you don't need to be worried about that. You should just kind of not worry so much, or, well, I do yoga every day, so you should just do yoga and then your anxiety will go away. That really minimizes people's experience. So again, it might be that you are really trying to just be helpful, to try and share the tools that have been helpful for you. But we want to be careful about how we're presenting these ideas and not just telling somebody what they should do. And again, not telling how to feel. So like I was saying, like telling people, oh, you don't need to be worried about that, or oh, you don't have to worry about that, or oh, you can just think more positively about the situation. That doesn't really help. Like a lot of people, it doesn't really change the way that they're thinking or feeling about something, but what it does is shows that you're not open to have that conversation with them about how they are really truly feeling, and they feel like they might not be able to be open and honest. So we want to make sure that we're not telling people what to do or how to feel. And then, of course, those like glib advice statements, we want to avoid, like calm down or move on. I mean, most of us have had conversations where we get heated and someone tells us to calm down, and that often makes things more heated rather than help to kind of calm down. So of course, we're avoiding those types of statements within conversation as well.